Join us as we dive deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today, interviewing top leaders from around the world and sharing true cybercrime stories to raise awareness. But first, a huge thank you to all of our executive co-producers who subscribed to our Prime membership and fueled our growth. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our episodes on Apple or Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. Well, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I'm your host, David Morrow. In the studio today is my illustrious, always positive and entertaining co-host, the Mark Mosher. Mark, how are you, man?
Hey, positivity is a choice. It's one of the few things we can actually control in life, right?
That is my insincere things to say about Coworkers app that I got that from. So I want
Highly
you to,
effective. 5 stars.
I want you to appreciate it. So today is going to be a really cool conversation. We are going to be talking about kind of new topics for us, right? Like how self-sovereign identity can help companies online. We are joined today by Joe Casanova of Furlough. Joe's the founder and CEO of Furlough. It's a thriving digital ecosystem allowing collaboration between tech, IT, marketing, business owners. It's got over 20,000 members, brand owners. It's really innovative approach. Joe, Mr. Casanova, thank you and welcome to the studio.
Welcome.
Amazing, David, Mark. Super happy to be here. And honestly, this is a topic, self-sovereign identity, that we are going towards, and without a doubt, it's super early, but I'm super excited for that ecosystem to be integrated with it. So we definitely have a fun conversation today. I know there's a few topics we're going to touch on, so can't wait to jump in.
Yeah, so tell the listeners and any viewers about a little bit about your background. How did you get into this? I know that you've had some success as an entrepreneur and a leader in IT and some of the emerging technologies. So share that with us.
Absolutely. I've been generally pretty passionate and curious about a lot of things. Tech is obviously very interesting, considering, innovations can just change the paradigms and what we do day to day. So really started off as a serial entrepreneur, more on the marketing operations side. And then I realized, marketing, I was always doing marketing, but I never really knew what marketing was. And I started being in Miami, being exposed to a lot of influencers, started helping them with their businesses, ended up getting involved with cryptocurrency. That's a whole long-winded story, which
that's a whole
we can make another episode with that right there.
Don't get us started on that.
I was an early investor in 2013 when the first bull run kind of pulled up to 20,000. I pulled out, bought my first hotel. Market collapsed. I was overextended. Ended up getting a job at an agency, which my business partner.
So you rode that initial wave. So you were able to, and then you pulled out. Wow.
Yeah, I learned my lesson. I've been in 3 kind of, not rug pools, but the first bull run with Mount Gox. That's when.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I saw that, I just kind of exited out of my first startup.
Yeah.
It was like a half equity that I just pulled out. A little soft exit in a sense. And I moved to LA. I didn't like it. It felt like Miami, a lot of fake people, which I'm going to talk about the fake people, because self-sovereign identity and building an identity layer, I think it actually solves this fake issue that a lot of people in this vanity, in this world that we live in, especially with social media. And with that, I ended up just looking at Bitcoin. I saw like $200, and I told my brother, I'm like, I think I'm just gonna put. And I remember him yelling at me, like, "You're gonna lose all your money. You're stupid."
Can you imagine buying Bitcoin for $200? Like that is just.
He did.
I know. It's like I got this little startup called Apple. I think I'm going to be able to buy it for like $50. Yeah. Okay. Maybe a good idea, dude. That's
wild.
Well, it's brilliant. And so let's get right to that, because that is really the one of the issues that people have when they're thinking of the metaverse or they're thinking of Web3, right? And it's the biggest challenge we have in cybersecurity, right? And that is authenticating ID. Like I really like identifying who the people are so that we actually know, is it really you? And so for people that don't know, like, tell us, tell us a little bit more about like what those experiences led you to do, because you've had some phenomenal success. You've kind of ridden the wave, sold companies. You're really on the cutting edge of like emerging technology.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm just curious about these things. So obviously, as crypto kind of came into the mainstream, we were really building the technology to decentralize the community, which tokenize economies. I still stand by. I think it's very, going to be integrated into our everyday lives, especially if we see what companies like Reddit are doing, where they're tokenizing and not calling it tokens, right? It's just
Right.
part of, just the new behavior that these people are having. And then AI came into and being a part of this community, and marketers and entrepreneurs, I think they're always pushing the limits of innovations, right? They're pushing what's possible, and it just made sense to integrate as much as possible with AI. And as these things are happening, there's always these like buzz or new things. And my issue with cryptocurrency and like blockchain is that Web3 is built currently on Web2. Most of the stuff is sitting on Amazon Web Services.
Right.
And when self-sovereign identity becomes a thing, which there are main challenges, which we will cover, in order for massive adoption, it has to be, it's true Web3, it's true ownership. This is when we stop getting on Amazon servers, and then you actually have your own servers in your home with your own identity, your own reputation, your own tokens, and they're not sitting in other servers. And with this, with full control of your identity, just to actually take a step back to close out that thought, I need to explain what identity models are.
Right. Walk us through that. Well, walk us through, because when most people think of the metaverse, right? They're going into these Decentraland, sandbox, or like there's these different metaverses, right? And they get on, but they're hosted somewhere. And what you're indicating is they're hosted mostly on Amazon Web servers. And should they be breached, how secure are we, right? And self-sovereign identity is something that's kind of a closed ecosystem, allows a lot more protection. Is that like the idiot's version of kind of what you're talking about? I'm just trying to understand the English.
Right.
I'm gonna try and explain it differently.
Get us there.
Walk us take it home for us, Joe.
Yeah, take us home.
I love the energy, I gotta say. So the first model is really a centralized identity model, which is where we opted in, right? And let's just look at basic opting in, signing in, right? When you type your username and you type a password, that is a centralized identity model, because your identity is tied to this centralized entity.
Right.
The next step to that was known as a federated identity model, which is where sign in with Facebook, sign in with Gmail. It's not centralized, but this federation is actually delegating your credentials to a third party
from some other place. Right. Got
Bingo. It. Now, what decentralized identity models, right? The first one you sign in with a username, second one you sign in with Facebook, third one you sign in with a wallet. And with a Decentraland and those somewhat centralized metaverses, like even some will argue Fortnite is a centralized metaverse. Right. And most of the issues with metaverse and Web3 gaming, play to earn gamings, is that they think they're competing against other Web3 games. It's like, no, you're competing against Grand Theft Auto, Fortnite, some of the biggest companies that have Grand Theft Auto 6, $2 billion budget. And you think your little ICO with a couple million is going to compete against that. It's just a false reality they live in. They're going to have a rude awakening. But the beauty about at least metaverse was that during the bull run last year, leading up to the other side NFT land sale, all these metaverse companies, Decentraland, they did create like a ton of fundraising, which created these war chests. So now during this quote unquote bear market, there have these lots of funds that they could keep developing and building off of this metaverse.
And is it okay? Let me pause you right there just to explain, because there's so many things you understand that some of our listeners may not. But in these metaverse lands like Decentraland, and is the other one called Sandbox? What's the other one called?
Sandbox, Decentraland.
Yeah, Sandbox, Decentraland. Right. You can go in and you can buy real estate. Right. You buy it through you buy NFTs, right? Basically. So it's something with a crypto wallet, and you purchase it, and you'll see there's a lot of law firms that are buying it, because because of the traffic of the people there, right? They want to advertise there, right? They want to advertise.
10 users, 10 daily users.
Yeah, in theory, in theory, there's a whole bunch of people. Everybody's rushing there, and so they want to buy the real estate, and they can design their buildings, and they can have advertisements. I think Snoop Dogg was in there. You can have like a place right near him or something, right? You're like, where's your where's your decentralized land? I'm like 2 blocks from Snoop Dogg, man. Like, you can like brag about it.
For the record, for the listeners, I had to explain to David who Snoop Dogg was. So
yeah, don't get me started. Like it's bad. I'm just showing my age. But anyway, so that's kind of what you were just talking about. So I just wanted to kind of explain that. So yeah, let's go back. Sorry, man.
No, you're totally good. Totally good. And
so there was a big rush, right? Like last year, lots of people were buying into it. They were doing it. And then all of a sudden, at some point last year, the bottom seemed to fall out.
I can tell you exact start and end point.
Yeah, tell us.
Oh,
Facebook
great.
becomes Meta. Everyone went crazy. I remember my holdings on Star Atlas. I like Solana as a layer 1 blockchain. Solana is great for gaming, and I think that gaming does push innovation. And very bullish in Star Atlas. I noticed it before I even saw the announcement. I just saw all these metaverse coins just taking off. And then it was wild because at the peak of the entire market, which is beyond me, how Bitcoin reaches $69,000, which is such a meme. And then Bored Ape Yacht Club, arguably the most successful project on, in Web3, they launched a land sale, which was peak market. And then after that, everything collapsed.
Really?
Okay. We haven't heard of metaverse since. Everyone went from NFT to GPT. So
yeah. And that really did monopolize the headlines, didn't it? Right around November when ChatGPT kind of went mainstream. Like all of a sudden you stop seeing social media posts and things about metaverse and all of that. Like, what's your take on that? What do you think it was? It was just a sea of attention that shifted, or what?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, we're in an attention economy. Everyone's fighting for it, and the metaverse just didn't meet up to the hype. And I still believe that an augmented world where you have, I like Google's approach. Why are we going to build a new world when we have a world that's right here that we use every day? Let's improve this existing one. So I'm big on the AR side. And I think self-sovereign identity does create this model where, yes, you have access to metaverses. I could access rooms, this is a very wide topic that is emerging technology, and there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to get built. So a lot of the content that we're going to be talking about is theoretical. And with self-sovereign identity, for example, I can verify these. So self-sovereign identity is I own my identity. Right. And the key to self-sovereign identity is what's known as verifiable credentials. Simple as put, credentials I can verify. So if I say, this is my Twitter account, this is my Instagram account, these are my accounts, I can then self-sovereign, I can confirm, verify these are my credentials. I can then go to a blockchain company that does real estate, show them this is the deed, the title to my property, these are all the properties I own, and they can encrypt that, verify those credentials, and this identity has more than, let's say, $2.5 million in real estate, which is confirmed by a third party. So let's just say we're in a metaverse, and in order to get through this room, I need more than $1 million net worth because everyone else is in net worth.
I got you.
How do you do that? I go to LA, everyone's a millionaire. I go to Miami, everyone's got an Audemars, everyone's got a Patek, and it's like you guys are driving Honda Civics and you have $100,000 watches. Doesn't make sense. But if I can use what's known as a decentralized identifier, simple put, an identifier, something that identifies as decentralized. So something that you can use, which as simple as put, it's usually a QR code. And I can say, hey, scan this, boop, has more of a net worth than $1 million, you're allowed entrance. Or wow, you're an influencer, or you have more than 1 million followers.
Got it.
All of this information are verifiable.
You can set different filters for who would be allowed in certain sections of it, right? And then that identity is verified.
Absolutely. And
that's
just
brilliant.
I want to put another example because it's super simple and something that we have firsthand experience with when it came down to COVID. Right. Yeah. And let's pretend a scenario where vaccine passports were a thing.
Right.
That would have been self-sovereign identity. You got if you had the shot, you have the shot, That is a verifiable credential. And now in order to access places, I need a QR code that says, did he get vaccinated? Cool. How many shots? Cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So self-sovereign identity applies to so many different industries. If you guys want another use case, I can give you more.
Yeah, dude. I'm starting to connect the dots now. So this is really good.
Yeah, give us another use case in it. And then I would just like you to try and synthesize, how do we define how do you build a self-sovereign identity? Does everybody need to get a physical box or a device kind of at their home locale or their HQ, and then they can be housed there and secured?
The cool thing about self-sovereign identity, it's actually chain agnostic. So it's not dependent on one chain. So I can verify my credentials on Ethereum, on Solana, on all different, even in the real world. Like I said about Twitter and all these other things. It's truly one identity that is connected to all of these other means, right? So in order to understand self-sovereign identity, right, you talk self-sovereign identity allows strongly for peer-to-peer transactions, which is blockchain. But in order for this to happen, you need what's known as a trust triangle. And the trust triangle has 3 parts and 3 players in it. One, the issuers. And a simple example, an issuer in the case is the US government.
Right.
A holder is a citizen. A verifier would be a liquor store. So the US government will issue an ID to the citizen, which is the holder. The holder will go to the liquor store and show their identity that says, I am above 21. In order for the trust triangle to work, the verifier needs to have trust in the issuer. And that's why it's a trust triangle. Connect.
Absolutely. So Moshe, you could relate to that analogy. So can they be tied?
I build on, if I can, just
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
The trust triangle is a very simple way to understand this. So I want to give 2 more examples of the trust triangle. Okay.
Yeah, do that, please.
So the issuer in the trust triangle would be higher education. The holders that get issued these verifiable credentials are the students that say, I went to that school. The verifier are the employers that would say, yes, your resume is confirmed, right? In our case with Furlough, which I hope in the next few years to actually implement when the true self-sovereign infrastructure is in place, Furlough is the issuer. We are validating professionals' talent and giving them pretty much accolades that represent their skill set. They're the holders. The holders, the professionals, connect to brands, and brands say, wow, you're a great talent. You worked with these people. You've delivered these results. Brands trust us. And the best part about all of this, and this goes right back to you guys, and I'm sure you guys are going to go and take this and run with it, is one tool known as selective disclosure. Okay. If I am a citizen that the government granted an ID and I need to go to a liquor store to buy alcohol, what information on my ID does that liquor store need to know?
Right. Not our financials.
Exactly.
Just the age.
I'm above 21. But when you give them your ID, you give them your home address, your birthday, your name, give them everything about you. I just need you to verify if I'm above 21. You don't need to know I'm 25, 30, 40.
Right.
And that's selective disclosure. By owning your identity, you disclose only the parts on a need-to-know basis.
So that's completely different than the current system of the government giving you a driver's license, right? Which has got a whole bunch of information. And you're turning that over to a liquor store that shouldn't have any idea where you live. They just need to know the age.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And to just think about what this means for internet on the service provider side. How many times does someone from Pakistan, from Ukraine, from the Philippines, do they need to charge a discount because they're not American?
Right.
So now with selective disclosure, why would I need to disclose that I'm in India? I don't need to. I need to.
If you've got the talent and the skills, if you got the talent and the skills and you're vetted, right? You should be able to, once we get online, any of us should be able to work, right? Like in that, and there shouldn't be that kind of silent prejudice that gets issued, right? Based on location or something like that. That's really good. That's a great way of eradicating some of the the hate that's out there too, right? I love it.
Mhm.
So you said once the infrastructure gets built, walk us through what needs to
And what
be
needs
built.
to happen?
Yeah.
For sure. So major challenges. I really tie this to three major challenges where it comes to SSI adoption, right? And one, it's building out this SSI ecosystem. Right now, the ecosystem is being funded heavily by government, and governments are the issuers, and government contracts have no problem of losing money because they're right. These government contracts, we're just going to invest in this and put everything on cryptographically secured on the chain and looping people in. And this is where companies like Spruce ID, which went through Y Combinator, raised a ton of money with Andreessen Horowitz. They're building us a self-sovereign identity, and they have self-sovereign storage, which is Kepler, great company. Definitely recommend if you're interested, look into what they're doing. And they're building out the SSI ecosystem. When I actually had a conversation with them, I'm like, how do you guys make money? Like, it's like all the issuers are non-for-profits trying to create an identity layer. And it's like, yeah, honestly, it's so crazy hearing this from a company saying we actually may open sourced everything, and we go out of business and we are out of jobs, we're actually okay with that. And these are internal discussions that they have because they're just like, we're building the future. So as long as it's on the infrastructure, it's solid. So I honestly respect all of them. Every single person I met from that company, beyond, I felt like I was not the smartest person in the room. So
I'm glad you said that, because that was kind of the sense. I had looked into kind of what the heck self-sovereign identity was, and I came across them, and I'm like, wow, they really seem like well-intended. Like they have they're doing it for the right reasons. So I think that's phenomenal. So as we're building it out, as we're building it out, first I want you to finish that question. Walk us through what needs to be built there. But then one of the things I'm curious, because when you said the government gets involved, red flags go off in my head, and they're like, at what point create too many regulations where it's not going to work?
The crazy part is that self-sovereign identity is the solution to majority of the problems that we have, in the sense that it's going to be very, very difficult for the government to corrupt this. Why? Because I own my identity, I own my data. That's it. And I don't need, like, yes, the government is an issuer. They issue credentials, they issue citizens, like, hey, here's your passport, birth certificate, whatever the case. Even, and I could give you a solid use case, we can get to it whenever you're ready, about healthcare, insane, but the government is simply an issuer. So you don't need to use what they issue as your identity. We and Furlough, we're going to create a separate one.
Right.
Yeah,
so they can, so that's a place where they can muck it up, and by saying, no, you have to use our identity, which gives too much information sometimes, or isn't held in a secure location.
It's cryptographically secured. So even if you use your identity and they say this is your name, this is your birthday, this, whatever the case, which you can go to another third party that someone trusts, right? Because the key here is trust. The issuer needs to be trusted. If you don't trust the US government, it doesn't matter what they issue for you. Because the verifiers don't want to take that. So you have to find these trusted third parties, which are the issuers. And there are going to be other issuers outside of the US government, like higher education.
Yeah, exactly.
Company. So on. So the first major challenge for wide mass spread adoption is the actual ecosystem and getting these issuers, these holders, these verifiers, because the holders, you need to issue accolades, things that represent their identity. That takes time. Identity isn't just one thing that I issue to you. It's your real estate holdings. It's the concerts you attend. It's your music taste. Okay. Because if everybody has their music taste and self-sovereign identity, and I walk into a restaurant and scan my QR code, and everyone at the restaurant does that, the restaurant knows the taste of music everybody likes, and now some AI playlist can play music that everyone enjoys.
Get out.
Man. Okay. I want to throw that fun one in
now
there.
You can see the tourist industry going, we're all in for this, right? Because that can make such a better experience.
Absolutely. Yes. And I want to give another use case and help.
Yeah, please. I
don't want to.
The use cases really help, Joe. The use cases really help us all picture it in our minds. So please share.
I'm gonna real quick just go through the major challenges, close that loop, and then we'll jump into healthcare, because the major challenge is actually understand why we do not have this. And with what's known as decentralized key management, right? Self-sovereign identity is public and private keys. Public is anyone could have. Private is your passcode. It's like cryptocurrency.
Right.
And if someone loses their key, technically they lose their entire identity. And when you use SSI for verifiable credentials, you can attach your bank account. Right. You can do one-click purchases, true one-click purchases, because it has your home address. It has, and you selectively disclose, here's my credit card, here's my bank, here's my home address. And one-click, like e-commerce with self-sovereign identity integrated within it, will be next level just because of the customer experience through that.
Yeah, and you're right. I can see the customer experience, the taste, the history, the purchase history, all of that. And then the shopping will be designed for historical desires and match up directly with the person.
Absolutely. Because you now have purchase history across multiple stores. So let's say I'm a female, I'm buying a top. Well, I had a skirt that I just purchased. Pull up my browser history, website of e-com with AI, give me recommendations of outfits that match with this, right? So I know you guys love the use cases.
Yes. That's so remarkable.
Without a doubt, this is the third, which is the biggest challenge as it relies to SSI adoption, is offline access, right? We all know that cryptocurrency and blockchain, it relies heavily on the internet. And if you're a cop and you pulled someone over in the mountains and you need to verify their driver's license, but you don't have reception, how do you do this? And this specific use case is being worked on around the clock by, there's so many WW3 and like they're self-sovereign. There's an open community of people that come together every year and just attack these challenges. And it's an emerging technology. So those three challenges, once we figure it out, of course, we'll start seeing it more integrated in everyone's everyday lives. So I'm not sure if you guys have any comments there, because I cannot wait to say this healthcare use case.
No, let him go, David. Let him go. He's on a roll. Go, Joe. Bring us home.
Yeah, let me see if we've got a whole bunch of listeners. So I'm just looking to see if anybody has gotten.
I haven't seen any questions come up yet.
Yeah, I don't see anything specific. So, Joe, I was wondering about healthcare. Now,
nice segue.
Is there a use case? Like, what would be the use case for self-sovereign identity in the realm of healthcare?
Absolutely. And it all goes like, imagine your healthcare, right? Self-sovereign identity. I have my medical records. I don't know like how many people have their medical records readily available. Probably very little. You have to call your doctor.
Most people do not. And and so that everybody knows who most do, but there is no centralized healthcare database. So when you go in, that's why the patient history is so important, because they have to know, what are you on? What are you taking? What have you had experiences, allergic reactions to something? What have you had operations? Do you have a stint in? Like all of these things, a lot of times they don't know because they can't go find it out. There isn't like a database. It's not like a criminal record that they could go into like the system and find out, which only until a few years ago did they even develop, right? Like, so that's a huge challenge. So this will be able to walk with you everywhere you go.
And as well, if I have my data, right, my medical history, and I can selectively disclose this medical history to, let's say, universities, let's say medical researchers, but I share my medical data anonymously. So they do not know this is Joe Casanova. They just know this is a 34-year-old male who has this lifestyle or whatever. And now imagine the entire country, every person in the world sharing their medical data anonymously. These medical facilities and research facilities, they have so much more data that can truly impact the state of public health for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's phenomenal. And then obviously, being cybersecurity nerds that we are, this would solve so many issues. Like I could just see so many challenges today where somebody's data, it's verified, right? And they would be able to verify themselves. They would be able to have access. The experience would be better and the security would be pristine. You know, there was a listener who just mentioned that in Australia, we have a central database for this, right? So that's national healthcare maybe, or they have that system in place. In the United States, we really don't, although there are big buckets of data out there. But they're vulnerable, right? They're vulnerable to attack. And so here it would be anonymous out there. It could be pulled in when you show your self-sovereign identity,
Yeah.
right? Like you would pull from that anonymous database. So if somebody got the database, it wouldn't be useful. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really as useful as whatever that data, right? So if I had a massive database of a bunch of businesses that are out of my field, like that's not worth anything for me, but for someone else, it could be worth everything, right? So
Right.
all this
Right.
anonymous
But if they don't
data,
know how to tie it, like if it's not tied to individual people, it's just out there anonymously and then drawn in through the self-sovereign data or self-sovereign identity, that's ingenious. So
yeah,
so where are we on the maturity scale? Let's say there's a maturity scale for when self-sovereign identity hits Chat GPT levels from November and December, right? Like, where are we are we in the chaotic state, the incubate stage right now? But there are a lot of groups that are building this out right now, and addressing it.
I would say we're probably like Bitcoin 1000 level
Okay.
right now.
That puts it in
Like,
perspective.
Yeah, that's a good
Mount
analogy.
Gox crash, and
Mm-hmm.
without a doubt, I think we have 8 to 10 years before, I think we'll see the governments, and then we'll see education system, and then we'll see private companies. Like, I'm without a doubt, I think it'll take about 3 to 4 years before we can truly say we built an identity layer for marketing professionals, because you see, so SSI is chain agnostic. So it doesn't
Right.
matter what chain. You don't even need to use blockchain, to be honest. It
Right.
uses the cool thing about SSI, it doesn't use tokens. It uses the blockchain, which is the entire reason why everyone should be bullish on Bitcoin and all these other alternative currencies, the blockchain. And SSI relies entirely on blockchain because of everything being cryptographically secured.
Right.
And what we're doing is we're actually using soul-bound tokens. So when you look at a
what are
wallet,
those? What are those?
so perfect, I love it. When you look at a wallet, especially blockchain, everything is transparent through a public ledger. Really, the only information you can pull from a wallet is what tokens they have, how many tokens they have, and the transaction of where that token came from. So me knowing that you have a Bored Ape Yacht Club or a metaverse land doesn't really tell me anything about you. Like, how is that anything to tie with your identity if you buy Coca-Cola? Doesn't say anything. But with soul-bound tokens, and this is something that Vitalik Buterin actually wrote a paper on, and we're seeing a lot of it with concerts. Ticketmaster just enabled soul-bound tokens, which are non-transferable tickets for concerts, which are basically saying, I was at this concert. If I'm always going to a specific concert or a specific genre, that says a little bit about my identity. I like pop music. I like hip hop.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So how we're using it is we throw a ton of events, all free. And if you're going into a topic on fintech, if you're specifically going on email marketing, we reward after going to class, right? I put that. And this is how education would use it. You pass an exam. Here's a token that verifies that you had this grade and you passed, AP bio at this grade.
Right.
So it takes time to issue these tokens. So we have the technology for sure. I mean, we can launch this tomorrow, but to issue so many tokens to so many wide people and creating an identity layer for each individual, it takes time, it takes patience, and I don't think great things are built overnight, but the road is definitely.
But you're talking like a 3 to 5 year runway. That's not that long. I mean, that's pretty rapid when you talk about emerging. I mean, I guess if you're talking about emerging tech, it's probably a lifetime, because you can see what it's going to do. But so what would speed it up? Like, is it private investment? Is it Silicon Valley? Is it regulation? Is it U.S. government involvement? I mean, if you've seen any congressional hearings, do you think they're going to get this? Dude, like, they don't even understand how TikTok works. Like, do you think this is going to, are they going to understand it? Which could work very well for its adoption because the private industry will move faster. I'm just curious what your thoughts
I,
are.
this is me. This is not. I don't want anyone to take this by law. This is perspective. I don't really see it becoming kind of like a ChatGPT mainstream. Everyone talking about self-sovereign identity. It's
Okay.
going to be something where there will be a pioneer, whether it is a government or students, and saying, "Hey, you can now." Everyone's losing their diplomas. This is a new way of doing things,
Right.
and there will be a buzz of some sort of basically in the betterment of someone's life through this, through having control of their identity. It's so difficult to really answer that question because I mean, I think the only thing that's really going to accelerate it is things like this, education. I think people know this is really the next frontier, like where we're going. And this is what cryptocurrency and blockchain and everything is inevitably leading to. And that's my kind of 2 cents on it. It's truly an educational approach,
So,
because the
so
players
what?
that
No, go
yeah, I
ahead.
was just the players that are building this technology, a lot of them open source it. Go to our
Right.
identity.org. That is an
Yep.
open source Solana self-sovereign identity. And same with
Yeah.
Spruce ID. And I mean, there's Disco. There's so many cool tools out there that are basically saying, hey, we are the future of SSI. And it's very
It's
funny when you look at these
phenomenal.
companies, go look at their business model. Try and figure out how they make money. That's a very interesting thing because they really don't.
Yeah, I mean we could, once it's established, I'm sure there will be ways to monetize and ways to tie in some of the data, right? Like we don't know how a website makes money when you click on accepting cookies, right? But then you find you got breached from some website you didn't even visit. It's because they sold your data, right? So this is so amazing. So you have developed this community. It's very active on Discord. Very impressed with that.
Thank you.
What are the things, we'll have the link in the show notes. It's Furlough. There's a Discord link. And then what are the things that you guys are doing in this community?
You know,
Walk the people through this.
So this is really, I see a lot of people right now that is a part of Furlough, and this is something I have no one in Furlough really knows about. I try to be very behind the scenes because I hate talking complex theoretical future stuff to people that it's not going to better their lives today, right?
Right.
And with Furlough, it truly right now the focus, because community is the main thing. We have all the
Mhm.
technology. We will decentralize. We will become a DAO. I'll relinquish my ownership, give it to the people, and we'll see the next evolution of what Furlough is when all its community members are like, wow, I actually own this because I have an asset that reflects my ownership through voting rights, which reflect what we can do with the treasury that was all, funded through the community. And right now, the priority is events, because events just like this one, this is an event. Us three are coming together. We're sharing knowledge, sharing education. If just one viewer got one thing from this conversation, perfect. I think that was
Yeah,
success,
mission accomplished then.
right?
Yeah.
And that's our main focus. We have such great stories coming out of the community of lives being changed, and it all happened. It was wild. Everyone got furloughed in the pandemic, and then it was furlough that brought us all together. And we're hearing success stories left and right. So really building those success stories. I believe at the end of the year, we'll see the sideways market, whether it drops and it takes off. Next bull run, I do believe that'll be time for us to actually release the DAO. And then with the DAO, we're going to be, I'm aiming for Q4 to actually start releasing these soulbound tokens and start building that identity layer, which towards the end of next year, I don't think, maybe the following year realistically is creating this peer-to-peer marketplace that
Mhm.
uses the identity layer as your resume. That
Oh, it's
is
amazing.
trusted by the community. We have such a great group of entrepreneurs, and marketers are hired by entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs need marketers to grow their business. So it's just such a synergistic relationship between the two. And I think self-sovereign identity and all this technology we're rolling out, we're not a business. We don't need a business plan or business goals. We're a community, and all we're
Right.
doing is building for this community. And that's why I'm super excited and educating about this topic, because I think it's going to enrich a lot of people's lives.
Absolutely. So, explain to everybody that's listening, like, what is a DAO? DAO. Can you just explain to that what that, like, dumb it down for us a little bit, Jeff?
I know. I realized when I said that, and
Yeah.
I was like, I shouldn't have said
All
it
I
like
heard
that.
so far is the future of everyone's identity started here on Cybercrime Jokers podcast.
Right,
That's
you
all
heard
I
it
got
here
out of it.
first.
So
heard it
I've
here
heard that.
first.
So other than that, I'm just teasing. But no, tell me about like, what is a DAO? I know I did the research, but most people won't. So walk us through.
So a DAO, I like to say, is an LLC, right? And an LLC is simply a company. And if you have a stock, your stock represents your ownership, but also your voting rights.
Right.
With Web3, which I believe a DAO is an LLC, is a company of Web3. It's a decentralized autonomous organization.
Right.
And the organization, instead of stocks that represent voting rights and ownership, they're tokens. So the approach that we're doing is we're going to be auctioning off tokens, and 100% of the proceeds of a sale. So let's just say we have 10 tokens and they sell for $1,000. 100% of the proceeds go to a treasury, and now we have 10 people in the community that have access to $10,000 in funds, and they can say, you guys want to invest in a company? Do you want to start our own? Okay, now we have 1,000 members that bought 1,000 tokens. That's $1 million, right? And with this $1 million, we can vote, hey, we're going to create a marketplace, and we're going to issue more identity, and we're going to end up running advertising and grow this community and grow the opportunities back to the owners of this community. And the cool thing that, once again, this is like a major news break for me. I have never spoken about this publicly, is you have the DAO, which are token holders that own the actual ecosystem, right? You have the soul-bound tokens that are issued to people that are participating in this ecosystem. And it's wild, there's something called an airdrop, which an airdrop is me just magically like dropping you these tokens. And you have the people that own the ecosystem, and then you have the people that are participating in the ecosystem, and they're all collaborating. And if you just print a token, drop it in all their wallets and say, hey, everybody, you have a digital token that you can purchase digital services of all the people you've been hanging out with and collaborating for the past years.
Wow.
You all have $10,000 now. All the people that own it, you have 10,000. All the people that participate, you have 5,000. Because the people that own it, they probably won't sell it immediately and cash out. They'll say, I own this community. I'm going to spend it on the people and encourage others to use it, while some will drop it. And the cool thing about this is that the money that we print out of thin air, it's not printed out of thin air. It actually comes from the DAO treasury. So by liquidating your tokens, you drop the value of your asset. So now everyone that bought into this is incentivized to drive business, to stimulate this economy. And I think that's one of the biggest issues we have. We've seen inflation. We've heard the news cycle.
It's a self-sustaining network. Like, it's a self-sustaining community that helps each other build business. Somebody is in this industry. Somebody has the need. You just start connecting the dots through collaboration. Dude, that's like,
this is really cool.
That's ingenious. That's
I feel like I've
really
done mental
good.
yoga, right? Like I'm in a better headspace, but I know it's going to be really sore real soon trying to chew through all this that Joe gave us.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And I just see it, the biggest issue that crypto has had, and that, you've had the scandals with FTX, and, we had Jerry Cotton up in Canada before that, like all those issues with some of those exchanges and some of the other ones that are in the news now. But it was about the mismanagement there, right? And about that. This solves all of that.
Yeah.
It solves all of it. Like,
those issues are centralized. Those issues were from what we've been doing this entire time. It's not the new technology. There's really, I just want to point for anyone that's really interested in this topic, there's 3 books that I read. I never do this. I read one book while I was reading the other and reading the other. I would cycle through 3 of these books last August, which they didn't mean to work. They never referenced each other, and yet
they all
worked together.
They all connected. What were they?
Obviously, I have one here.
Good man, he's got him in the background.
Yeah, I knew you would appreciate
you really
that.
Start doing this. First, Mosher's got to finish a book, but then he's got to like start keeping them in the back, like I do.
I read comics.
Yeah, I know you read comics.
Okay, this is the main self-sovereign identity book. You guys want to learn? This is
okay.
Very, very thick. They're pioneers. Definitely, if you're interested in self-sovereign identity, I'd push you this. The other book was called The Metaverse by Matthew Ball.
Okay,
Last
I've
year
heard of that.
was one of
Yep.
one of the biggest crazes. You would think it's a metaverse book, but it got so crazily detailed about the hardware and the limitations and what it takes to
Mhm.
become a metaverse, and even like latency issues and current
Oh,
existing
wow.
metaverse.
Right.
Fascinating book. I read those two, and then I also read The Network State by Balaj. I can never pronounce his last name. The CTO of Coinbase, and wow,
Yep.
those three books. I mean, just go to the Network State. I don't have the book because it's only online. You can read it on the website.
Yeah.
So I was walking through Barcelona last summer, just on my phone, book cover to cover, just read through all of these, and it connected the dots. And I think just reading those three books made me top
Understand
1%
it.
of 1% in this space because it's so new. And not a lot of
Absolutely.
people can connect the dots. So
That's fantastic.
This
So
was
where do we go from here? Like what can people do if they want to learn more and get more involved? And then where do you see this going next? Two totally different questions. Let's do the
those
first.
two.
Let's do the first one first. So
I
if people want to get involved in furlough,
That's it.
what are some of the things that they'll benefit from getting involved? Does it cost money? Do they can they engage? Like, are you elsewhere other than in Discord? Like, walk us
Mhm.
through that.
So we started in Discord during the
Mhm.
pandemic. I ended up streaming. I saw all this attention on Twitch, and I
Mhm.
streamed to a bunch of young marketers, more interns actually. And I was like, look, you're gonna be taken advantage of by these companies. What do you want? What are your goals? I'll help you. Some kid got me on Discord, and we've been all in on Discord, and we became Discord partners, which is actually a big challenge. We got denied 7 times with 2 months of waiting periods before you could reapply. We finally got approved, and just the other day, I had a conversation with my community managers, and I told them, I'm like, we need to transcend Discord, right? And now we're really doing a stronger push on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and of course, like the Facebook Metas, Twitter Threads, all these other platforms.
Mhm.
With Discord, I hate paywall communities. I hate communities you need to
Right.
pay, because I do not want you in this community because you feel like I paid, I need to be here, or these people want
right.
me for money.
Right.
There is no monetization. Like, we are
Right.
good at business. If I'm so good at business, why do I need your $20 a month, $30 a month? None of
Exactly.
that. This
Exactly.
community, the purpose of this community is to give. It's a giving culture. We come in, we give our time, we give our expertise. There's no trade secrets. You want to know how we build something? I'll show you exactly how you do it.
Right.
There's no competition, just collaboration. And that's what we're doing. We're focusing on community, because when this tokenized ecosystem comes, in order to have a currency, you need to trust that the other person
Yep. Yep.
actually is going to hold the value, and there
Right.
needs to be trust. So we're right now just making sure we build the trust of this community, and that's why I believe that the crypto Web3 NFT model is backwards. You're telling me I need to fundraise, all my investors are going to be my community, I'm going to build in public, I'm going to do a roadmap on emerging technology that's never been built anymore, and you guys, I'm going to give you all progress updates. And by the way, my subscription model, it's a one-time purchase, so I do not have
Right.
constant cash flow going in, because it's just crazy backwards.
Yeah.
And if you look at businesses, they built an MVP and they focus on their initial customers or whatever, early
Minimum viable
adopters,
product. Yep.
and take off. So
Right.
we kind of grab this model. We're doing all the work beforehand, and once we release it, it's not like we have to go build in public. It will be built. So
Right.
if you want to come by, go to the events. I mean, Furlough TVs, our YouTube. I think Discord is the best platform for communities, because you'll come in, you'll turn on your camera, you'll screen share, and you're in a room with me. We are in. This is what Discord
Yeah.
is. It's us three talking with a
Exactly.
chat. So
Right.
you don't want to turn on your camera, you can engage in the chat. But truly, I mean, you'll find like it's so easy nowadays to get in the same room as someone, and a lot of people really don't take advantage of that. So
Oh,
want to get in a room with
absolutely.
myself and other professionals, come by. We're just one click away.
Yeah,
And
and
what
what a great way of getting expertise and collaborating with people all over the world, like from no matter where you're at. I mean, that's just phenomenal. You can jump into the same room, whether you're traveling, whether you're at home, at the office, whatever. It's phenomenal. So that's excellent. Okay, so we'll have that
you had
link
one more.
below. And
You
then
had another question.
yeah, go ahead.
What was it? What's next?
Yeah,
Or-
what are the next steps? Like what's the next step into where, you know, self-sovereign identity is at, it's a Bitcoin 1000. As it
Get
progresses
it to
up,
10,000 to
what's the
28.
next step that we're going to see?
For sure, it has to be practical. It has to be
Mhm.
practical use case, right? And with us, it's really just we're doing it. I think our use case is a lot more practical for entrepreneurs and marketers. But how do we get mass adoption? It needs to be practical to every single person. And
Absolutely.
obviously in this case, patience is one, because you could have your identity on a decentralized identifier on your phone that you have access to, and you go to a restaurant and they don't actually use the tech, right? So
Right.
there is going to be some time before that happens, but at the same time, like the opportunities that are going to arise, because
That'll catch up though
implementation,
pretty quick. You remember when like restaurants didn't have like QR codes and they didn't have any of that stuff, right? Like,
people saw the opportunity.
yeah. I mean, no restaurant had a Facebook page, none of that. And then all of a sudden everybody's got a Facebook page. And then some
Oh my
restaurants are still like putting on a Facebook page now, even though it's like old news. And you're like, ooh, we're excited. We have a Facebook page. Like, welcome to the 21st century. Like they're like 10 years late. But okay, so
Well,
it's
just to say
got,
that, you're
yeah,
right. Like if you're everyone that has watched this so far, you're mindful of what the next Chat GPT, the next NFT,
yeah,
whatever is coming, and when the time comes, you can offer it as a service. And
right.
even with AI, there's so many clients that I overwhelm them with the AI, because it's my advantage for them not to understand it. Because if they understand it, they don't need me.
Right.
So,
Right.
and they're never going to use it. I know. I showed them it, and they were just like, "Write me a comedy script with me as an actor," and like, it's jokes, it's jokes. So
So hey,
I,
so
I
can I ask you about that? So you are one of the brighter minds when it comes to AI, and we had talked about, because we're the cybersecurity guys, we were talking about like incidents that have happened in the news, and there have been several, but the biggest one that people tend to talk about is the Samsung one, where they put in the source code right and into ChatGPT, so that they can ideate or get some bugs fixed or whatever, not realizing once you put it in there, then it's public, right? But in our prior discussions, like there are ways to leverage AI privately, like or more
But
securely.
you do it
Can
within your organization, don't you, Joe?
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
is that through an API? What is that through?
Yeah, well, I'm blessed to have a brother who is a very talented software engineer. So even I have a kind of chat GPT on my phone as a chat that I text. So when you're using chat GPT, it owns all your data. Like
Right.
everything you write in there, you've consented, they can use it, they can do whatever. So like try not to put proprietary stuff in your chats
Right, which is
because then
why
you
a
have
lot of
access.
companies have like AI
They have
policies now,
policies now. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
where they're like, you cannot do this. Like, don't use it. Don't use it through a work device or whatever. And it's probably
mhm,
because they haven't configured it correctly to be able to leverage it.
absolutely. And with understanding that, at the same time, like I do use ChatGPT without an API. I just make sure that the things I need
Yeah.
it
Oh, yeah.
for,
You can
like
still
put an
ideate. You
email
can still,
together or something
yeah. There's still a
simple. Yeah,
million uses for it.
yeah. Let's be honest. Humans are will gladly surrender privacy for convenience, and that's what we need to understand with ChatGPT.
I would say so. So I would agree with that. And I would also say Americans will gladly do
Yeah.
that much
More so
more
than
than other
anybody else.
people,
Any other country, yes, yeah.
right? Because our friends over in the EU are much like they view their private data as a fundamental human right.
Mhm.
Americans are like, here's my stuff. Like, let me, my password's my dog's name. Like, I got it all set up, right? And they don't understand the damage that actually can happen. And that's probably for a couple of reasons. Maybe our banking industry is different, right? Like, and we have bankruptcy laws, so like any risk we can always kind of get out of here in the states. Over in other countries, they don't have bankruptcy laws. You're personally liable if somebody gets your stuff, so they take it a little bit more seriously. And so it's just a different dynamic, different cultures, different, you know, political systems that it was built on. But so, what are your thoughts on how AI can be made more secure? Do you like just high level? Like, how can people use it more securely? Like, we don't have self-sovereign identity to use AI yet. So how do what can people do today?
I, I hate to take like a cheap answer to this, but it's like
It's okay.
it's really mindful, you know?
Mhm.
And there are certain conveniences that you can use ChatGPT for that I surrender certain privacy because I need to use a plugin so that the plugin can audit my Zapier automations and give me recommendations on how to improve my standard operating procedures of my company. And I
Right.
can't do that with an API access. And if I do, it's going to cost me an extra $1,000 for what? For them to see a sequence between a form to an email to a task on my project management. I'm like, you know, and but you have to be mindful. Like, do not put your social security number in ChatGPT for whatever
Right.
reason, you know. And I like to think anything you put on the internet, just imagine there is somebody else out there reading it. You know, even on WhatsApp, I treat as encrypted as it is. I'm very
Absolutely.
careful on the stuff I say there, on the stuff I say in group chats, on my Instagrams and stuff like that. Just mindfulness, really, because cancel culture is real. And
Yeah, people call it
like,
situational awareness. I mean,
mhm.
Mark and I have had the pleasure of interviewing some of the like brightest minds in security, like around the world, and it is shockingly sad how we all could have guessed what like the answers are. Like, it's always like we had a neuroscientist on, right? And
Oh yeah, yeah.
the answer was scientifically speaking. And I thought it was going to be something brand new. They're like, you need to pause. I'm like, that's all you got, man? Like,
Wow.
that's the answer. But there was science behind it, because when you think of like social engineering, or you think of phishing emails or whatever it is that could compromise us, right? Like, we could be trained a million times. And if we all look objectively, you know, from above, we could say that's obviously wrong. That's this. But when you're in the middle of it, right, and there's that sense of urgency, your brain doesn't function. It doesn't remember the training. It biologically can't, right? So by being mindful, like you're saying, is pausing and allowing your neocortex to actually work so that you can actually realize that you're being socially engineered. It's
Yep.
that situational awareness. Bizarre.
That was the best answer. I mean, I want to applaud
It's
you. That
really
was
good
such a
though.
good. Yeah.
It boils down to things that we all can do. And if we do it for ourselves, and we do it for our families, we do it for our home life, when we go to work or when we're building our businesses, we'll take that digital hygiene there, right? That's why I think it all starts at home. It all starts with our own individual kind of view of it.
That's the reason we
So
need to own our own data.
yeah, that's exactly right. That's why this
Do
is
you like the way
next.
I close that loop on
Full
that, Joe?
circle,
Just see how I brought that home?
Dude, we do though.
Like
This has got, man, this has got legs. So this is going to be something that we're going to. By the way, this is not the last time you're going to be on this
Oh no,
podcast.
no.
So we're also going to, you do a lot of podcasts, a lot of video recording. We're going to do like a behind the scenes, and kind of share with people kind of how we do it and stuff. I think that'll be fun. But also, Joe, I mean, I really think as you guys enter the next phase of it, right? We want you to come back and be like, dude, we didn't even predict this was going to happen, right? Because something will happen that's unpredictable in between now and then. So
I mean, we said we were going to talk more on the AI stuff, and we just went.
I know. I had a whole list of AI stuff I wanted to get to. Well, we'll do that in the second episode.
Yeah. And let me tell you, if I'm able to screen share, I know which we didn't. I just want to have a conversation, but
let's do it.
When I get to screen sharing, I could show you ChatGPT conversations and how to actually train model. Oh, we can be here all day.
There's episode 2, ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think, Joe, actually, I think if you're willing, I think a deeper dive into AI and like best practices and how people can use it and how people can prompt better, because that whole prompt engineer for AI is like a great job that almost every company could have, right? Like, it's
if
so.
I may, I just just
please.
Because I know I this is one thing that it's wild. Like the bell curve. You ever seen the bell curve of intelligence, where it's like they don't know anything, and then they're studying, and then like they know everything, but they're back to not knowing anything. And that's how I was in the beginning, prompt engineering, buying prompt packs and understanding, act as a super entrepreneur with the combined intelligence of Mark Cuban, Elon Musk, and Gary Vaynerchuk. You're the new CEO of Furlough. I ask you everything. I kid you not. And then I realized short-term, long-term memory. That's a real
Right.
thing in ChatGPT. So I stopped everything. With the plugins, it has web access. I have an archive of like all the information that they need to know, for example, about Furlough. I will
Yeah.
say, this is Furlough, taste, understand it. And then
Right.
the simplest thing is, you will help me with whatever it is. So
Right.
if it's like, you will help
You
me
don't
with
have to be
website copy.
polite. You don't have to
Yeah,
thank
so
them. You don't have to thank them.
thank you, right? Yeah.
People do
You
that
will
all the time.
please
Hey,
help
thanks
me.
for doing
Please
this.
help
Oh,
me.
great. And then it responds like cheerfully. It's like, oh, no problem, man. I'm like, you coming over for drinks after? Like, it's a machine. You don't have to thank it. That's great.
Until it's sentient. So,
That's
but
Yes,
phenomenal.
until then.
Yeah,
Until
exactly.
then.
Until it does come over.
but really, I mean, the best prompt you can give, and it applies to every single person who wants to use it. Someone asked me in our general chat, can anyone help me write a business plan? And I go, go to ChatGPT and write this exact same thing. And he copied it and he wrote it, and he now has a business plan. It was, you will help me write a business plan, period. Ask me questions so you can complete this task.
Brilliant.
You will help me write a website copy. Ask me questions.
Ask me the questions, and then it asks you the questions, you give it the answer, and then it populates it.
Spits it out. And then at that point, you just have a conversation and adjust. As simple as that. Everything else, you're doing too much. You really are. Keep it simple.
Right.
Love it.
I love it, man.
Wise parting
Joe Casanova,
words.
man, thank you
I just
so
did
much.
a mic drop on everybody.
Absolutely.
That was a real mic drop. That was awesome.
Yeah, I am excited about having you back. We're gonna discover a lot of new things. We're gonna go behind the scenes, and then we're also going to take a deeper dive on AI, because I think that is really, really key.
Yep.
And then who knows, maybe by then something new will drop. I would also love to like bend your mind on some of the stories about crypto and what they really mean, right? Like when people see this stuff in the news, why is it that happened? Because I think people get gun shy. They don't want to invest anymore, and that's hurting the evolution of the technology, right? And the fact that blockchain is a brilliant mechanism that has security and financial stability built into it. We just, some of the players that rushed in there maybe mishandled it or something. Like that's kind of what I really want to get into, because you've seen things that we haven't seen.
And my only comment I'm going to say, just for this one, obviously the next one we could talk all about it, is at this current moment, in the full existence of cryptocurrency's existence, right? There are more retail investors that are dollar cost averaging into these large caps, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, and everyone else. They're dollar cost averaging. They're recurring buying on a limited amount of, like, there's only 28 million Bitcoin. There will never be more Bitcoin. And every day people lose Bitcoin. Like, I have a wallet that doesn't have Bitcoin. There's so many stories. How many alternative currencies are there that are not currencies of a country? Like, these cryptocurrencies are not going away unless the internet goes out, which I truly believe we have bigger issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Bitcoin won't be a problem if we lose the internet.
That's phenomenal. Yep, we'll more of a deeper dive on that later. Joe Casanova, Furlough, thank you to your hordes of people that joined as well, that helped out. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it, man. All right, we'll talk soon, my friend.
Mark, you guys are incredible hosts. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
Me.
Awesome.
Amazing talk.
Great
stuff.
Thanks. Oh. Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.